Hello my friends, let's go straight to the Bakhmut, and we understand already that Wagner forces are just stuck in that city. They don't have enough resources to encircle it. So I think that overall the Ukrainian command did the right choice to send more reinforcements to that city. You see how many brigades and regiments we have in that area. And the leader of the Wagner group, Prigozhin, in his today's interview said that still they're in lack of the ammunitions for the artillery systems. He said that they agreed with the factories to produce more artillery shells, and there is no problem with that for now, but the problem stays with the bureaucracy and the delivery of the ammunitions to the Wagner army. And this is not just the Wagner problem, this problem occurs also in the regular Russian armed forces. Unfortunately, Ukraine also has the shortage in artillery systems. We now have to use around 4,000 up to 7,000 rounds per day. And by doing so, the Ukrainian army takes quite a limited resource that we have and we need for the counterattack in the future. And today, my friends, we're gonna also speak about the future counterattack about the Ukrainian army, because everyone understands that it is imminent. Luckily, the European Union agreed to supply more artillery rounds to Ukraine and even produce more on European factories. We're speaking about 155mm shells, which should replace the Soviet-made artillery rounds that we still use sometimes. And that round is quite powerful and used widely in many of the artillery systems that the Ukrainian army got from our Western allies. Alright, now I'm gonna review this map, and later on we're gonna speak about the situation in general. So for yesterday, there is no any change in Bakhmut, as I said to you, but Russia is pushing also to the other sides. For example, over here on the south, because they cannot go to the north and cut supplies in Ivanovsk, and also they continue to push westbound over here. I don't know why they're doing so, because maybe they want to provide security for their own flanks, because previously Prigozhin say that there is the counterattack possible for Ukrainian forces in April. I don't think it is possible for now, because still we are in lack of the resources, we are in lack of the ammunitions that should be supplied by our allies. But mainly I think that will be used on the south of Ukraine. About the Bakhmut, we were able to stop Russians on the north in the factory, so they stuck over there because they should go also to the basements, and there are several floors below in that particular factory, and Ukraine was able to create the spots of defense, and it's very hard to fight underneath the ground. And also they are moving from the south, but for the last 2 days no success from the Russian forces. Ukraine thrown more forces to counteract to the Russian attacks. And today there was the Bloomberg article released saying that Prigozhin is thinking to withdraw the forces from Ukraine and move them to Africa. You see, Prigozhin wanted to have some extra points in this war. He thought to get more soldiers, but actually he got prisoners who are not really a good fighters, and he wasted lots of the professional soldiers that got the experience in Africa and Syria, so definitely he became weaker. Yes, now he got some sort of the PR resource, and with current Russian poverty, some of the soldiers from the regular Russian army might join Wagner army. And Africa is more interesting for Prigozhin, because there they can uncontrollably dig to the ground and get diamonds or maybe oil, gold, whatever. But definitely what is true that Wagner soldiers are really exhausted in Bakhmut. They continue to push with all of the forces they have, but still after Solidar and after a few months of the intense fighting in the Bakhmut area, they are unable to achieve their main goal, encircle the Bakhmut city. And the Ukrainian goal was to cause that situation for Wagner. They have severe losses. Now Ukrainian army also has the severe losses, and we reinforce the area, and we now start to lose more soldiers in Bakhmut. That's the price we pay for the victory. At the same time, Ukrainian army is getting ready for the new equipment that will be delivered very soon, so our soldiers are on the training abroad or in Ukraine far behind the front lines, and that armada would crush probably the Russian positions, but I think not in the Bakhmut area. Now the task of Ukraine is to create the hole where Russia would waste their resources, ammunition, tanks, and even aviation. And now this hole is Bakhmut area and also Avdiivka. And this is the Bakhmut city itself. As you can see, Russia moved towards the city in industrial part in the factory, but stuck over there, so there is no any vector to move further. That is why they also started to attack from this side, also from the north, where there is no any industrial areas and no factories. Here it's the heavy fighting all the day. The same we may say for the south part. There are two vectors from this part and one over here straight to the central part of the city. So what is the most critical part for the city nowadays? I would say it's Hromova over here, because here you can see there is the supply road coming to the Bakhmut and also the small secondary road that is mostly used by Ukrainian forces nowadays, and Russian forces are really close to Hromova. Actually, they called that they took the control over this position. If they take control over this place, my friends, they partially may encircle the city. Still, there is the way out available for Ukrainian forces, but it's the tiny gap compared to what we have right now. And you know, the weather is still kind of wet and the soil is not robust, so we need to have roads under our control to provide supplies for Ukrainian army, which was sent to the city. And here we have lots of the brigades and armies. The Russian propaganda says that Zelensky wants all of those brigades to be encircled and devastated because he wants to show to the Western world that we have severe losses, and that may increase the help to Ukrainian army, providing more tanks and more artillery systems plus planes. So this sacrifice is for good, they say, but it's complete nonsense, my friends, because we need our army men for the future counterattack that was announced by our president and our government and our army, even by our Western allies. So it is imminent and Russia knows about it. And what our guys are doing here in Bakhmut and Avdiivka, they're not fighting for this particular land, they're fighting for the time. They resist against the Russian attacks to give some time for other Ukrainian soldiers to get ready for the massive counterattack, which I think might happen on the south part of Ukraine. At least it's the most logical place. But it's still a miracle for me how Ukrainian forces can withstand this massive aggression from the Wagner army and regular Russian army in the Bakhmut city. If I was the commander, I would tell the forces to withdraw from the city, I think, because I know that there are lots of the casualties, and after Wagner went to the city, the ratio of the casualties increased not in favor of Ukraine. Now it's around 1-1 because the urban fighting is very deadly. Before then, Wagner soldiers were fighting in the Bakhmut suburbs. We caused them severe losses and the ratio was up to 1-7. And that is why the Pentagon chief Lloyd Austin said and recommended to Ukrainian side to withdraw the forces from Bakhmut around 2 or maybe 3 weeks ago. But after some of the consultations and meetings with the Ukrainian military command, the Pentagon officials said that it's better to resist in Bakhmut for this time. So our guys continue to do a fantastic job in the Bakhmut area, enabling Russian forces to move to encircle that particular city. And here we have Avdiivka. As you can see, the situation there is also dramatic, and there are not as many forces, as you can see, not as many regiments and battalions as in Bakhmut city. And from the Russian side, there is the self-proclaimed Republic Army, and also the regular Russian army is fighting for this particular town. And recently they moved closer to Novokalinova over here, but were pushed away by the Ukrainian forces and stuck there as well before the railroad. As for the supplies of Avdiivka, the situation there is better compared to the Bakhmut area. We have lots of the roads, the railroad actually, which is very close to the front lines, unfortunately, but we have some of the secondary roads here as well that are used by Ukrainian forces to supply the city, or it's better to say the town, because it is much smaller compared to the Bakhmut city. And today we have received the information that Russia performed the goodwill gesture from Novakhovka. It was reported by the command of the South Front of Ukrainian army, but actually it was the change of the soldiers in Novakhovka by the Russian side, and it was misunderstanding. That is why the General Command of Ukrainian army said that this information was not correct, and Russia still keeps Kakhovka or Novakhovka under their control. This also could be the spot for the next Ukrainian counterattack, and usually, according to the book, there should not be just one vector of the counterattack. You need to have something to distract your enemy, to let them split their resources. So from what I can say, I expect the counterattack towards Melitopol. I don't know from what direction it will take place, maybe from Orikhiv, and also the other counterattack might be from Hulaypole or maybe Vuhledar, where Russia concentrated their forces, but mostly for the attack, so they don't have the defense lines in that area, because they were planning the massive attack during the winter time, but their attack failed. As we know it, they lost lots of the vehicles, armor vehicles and tanks in Vuhledar, in the minefields under the artillery fire, and also they bogged down in Avdiivka and in Bakhmut. So we can say that the winter Russian attack is complete failure. The only place where they were successful was in Soledar, but it's a very small city and they've took some of the villages around, but it's nothing compared to Ukrainian counterattack that took place in the Kharkiv region, and we liberated lots of the big cities like Kupiansk and Izum. In Izum we encircled the first Russian tank army and took more than 300 tanks from them. And you may say that Russia is getting ready for the Ukrainian counterattack. They're building some of the defense lines in the area to prevent the assault from the high-mobility Ukrainian units. So they dig down to the ground, created the trenches or those cones. But actually, my friends, the defense lines that were built by Russia is mostly nonsense. So I hope that you can see this image. This is the standard defense line that is created by the Russian builders, but actually those engineers are not coming from the military. The company that built those defense lines is actually private Russian company, belonged to some sort of the relatives of the military guys. And yes, for sure it was a money laundering. But still they were able to build those lines that are very hard to penetrate, or not. Well, first of all, they connected all of the cones with each other with a metal wire, or you may call it tube. So what can you do? You may go there with something or launch something and just pull out, and that is how you can eliminate the line. And also there were some of the videos showing how tank may penetrate easily those defense lines by just going forward towards them. Because the concrete that those cones are made of, it's very bad, the bad quality. So it basically cracks, not enough cement to produce those cones, and that is why it was the money laundering. Alright, but if you penetrate those lines, you still have this trench over here, but it's just a straight line. It should be made in a different way, like this, or maybe this. You need to isolate the trenches or the part of the trenches, because if the enemy side would be successful in some certain place, they might shoot through all of the trench, eliminating everything over there. And if it's not a straight line, you may isolate the part of the trenches. And yes, I saw the trenches from the Russian side in different forms, but mostly it's the straight line. And Russian military bloggers and experts were mad about the case. They were complaining, but it was done not by the military engineers, it was done by civilians. So that is how Russia works, and it's good actually for the Ukrainian side. Plus, Russia still has the problems with logistics, and if we cut them in two, in case of the successful Ukrainian counterattack, for sure it will become terrible for them. And if we do everything according to the plan, we may break the Russian defense and create the avalanche, so Russian front line may collapse not only on the south but everywhere. And if it goes very fast, it will also limit the time for the Russian regime. It may not keep the power in that case, and that is Ukrainian bet. And we bet quite a lot on that attack, because in the future we might not create the second one. Because we are also in lack of the human resource. And you know, there was the big gap between the start of the war and then we start to receive the modern day weaponry as tanks, Bradleys, so we wasted, I think, 1 year. Not we, but our friends who didn't want to escalate, and because of that we lost many soldiers on the front lines. I expect this number to be something between 50,000 and 70,000 soldiers that we lost during this war. And that is the big number. Also, the life in Ukraine is not as it was in the beginning of the war. For example, if we go 100 miles away from the front lines, even in Dnipro or maybe Poltava, the life is mostly as it was before the war. Yes, this war touched everyone, but it's the normal civilian life. And people start to think, should I go to the army or not? It was no question that Russia attacked over here near to the Kiev. There were lots of the men in a queue to join the Ukrainian armed forces, but now it is more or less relaxed, and all of the volunteers who were willing to join the Ukrainian army mostly already joined it. And that's why the Ukrainian government unfortunately is using the force nowadays to push Ukrainian men to join the army, but those people are not really motivated. So if we speak about the motivated soldiers from the Ukrainian side, for now it's the fixed number. I'm honestly out of the information what that number is, but they are already in Ukrainian army. And that's why I say that we bet mostly everything for this spring counterattack from Ukrainian army. But it should work, my friends. It should work, because Russia is not really getting ready to withstand our attack. They tried their own during the winter time, but bogged down, just stagnant there and wasted lots of the resources. And to counteract to Ukrainian advantage, that could be the biggest military operation since the Second World War, I don't think they're gonna handle it. And there's the probability for Ukrainian army to go to Crimea. But anyways, we're gonna see it in the future for sure, 100%. And here is the chance to put the end for this war, and also for the Russia as we know it. It may collapse into different countries, or regime of Putin might be reformed. But if somehow Russia stops the Ukrainian counterattack this spring or summer, well, in that case, we're gonna face the long-term conflict that could last for years or even decades. Because none of the sides would have enough resources to turn the situation from the strategic point of view in their favor. And who knows, maybe Ukraine would be forced to sign the peace agreement with Russia in that case. But I'm hardly against it, as the majority of the Ukrainian population. And I'm very happy that for this day most of our allies understand that. So the future counterattack will be go or no go for Ukraine. Well, what I know that in any kind of scenario, Ukraine is not gonna lose. But we should definitely win from the military perspective, because there is no other chance to return back our territories together with people. And yes, this is the article from Bloomberg that Prigozhin is thinking to move the Wagner forces out from the Bakhmut to Africa, but Prigozhin already commented that Russia needs them in Ukraine. Well, definitely we'll see in the future. Awesome news from Slovakia. We have received first MiGs from that country. We're speaking about 4 airplanes, and I already posted that news on my Telegram channel. So my friends, I highly recommend you to join my Telegram channel. You may find it in the video description just below. I use it as an alternate to YouTube, and I post there regularly. So in case something goes wrong with my channel, you may always find me in Telegram. As for the airplanes, we need them for counterattack as well to eliminate the risk from the Russian aviation. Plus, we sent our representatives to Finland to speak about the F-18 Hornet possible transfer to Ukrainian army, and the United States will also join the commission to search for that opportunity. I think this could be the best real choice for the Ukrainian army. And we have the comment from Dan Reis. He is the advisor of the Ukrainian army command, and he said that Ukraine is getting ready for the massive counterattack that will shock the world. Because Russia is using their best forces right now during the winter campaign in Bakhmut and Avdiivka, so they're fully exhausted, and Ukraine is training their soldiers abroad and getting more armor to start the counterattack, so Ukraine will be more prepared compared to the last year than it was the major success for us as in Kharkiv region or Kherson. So definitely we might create the avalanche that will destroy the Russian forces all across the front lines. And again, it is happening just right now. We have air sirens on the north side of Ukraine and on the eastern side. So Russia is wasting their rockets and drones against that civilian infrastructure. They are very stupid. They might have used those rockets to destroy the infrastructure for the military units. Yes, partially they did it, but now we have new supplies, and mostly last autumn and during the winter time they concentrated against Ukrainian power stations. And Ukraine was able to renew those stations, so now we don't have that problems with electricity as it was during the autumn or the winter time, and Russia wasted the most part of their rockets. And honestly, I might say that it's good that we fight against that incompetent Russian command, who thought that they may press Ukrainian people for some sort of the peace agreements. No, we hate them more. Alright, it seems like we witnessed the last few days or maybe weeks of TikTok in the United States of America, because most of the United States officials say that this is the spy net, it collects the information from the United States users and it should be ended in one or other way, said Blinken. And today it was the live stream from the Senate where the CEO of TikTok was questioned by senators. And yes, just to remind you, TikTok is made in China. This is the Chinese network, and more than 150 million people, as claimed by CEO, are using this application in their phones in the United States of America. Well, many people are connected to TikTok, but I honestly think that Chinese companies should be treated equally as China treat the United States companies in their territory. For example, Google and YouTube are totally banned in China. And you know, then TikTok CEO says something about the censorship in the United States. Man, look at your country, what they're doing with others. Well, I may say that I use TikTok because it's quite popular in Ukraine. I see sometimes that our soldiers are vlogging in TikTok and post quite a unique content that sometimes got banned, and I have my own account on TikTok with aviation videos and more than 700,000 subscribers, but I support blocking this platform, at least until Google, YouTube and other American resources will be unbanned in China. So we need equal rights. And yes, it's just my own opinion. I was really surprised to see those photos, because here you may see Iranian rockets and now they're in Ukraine somehow. Well, before, I think during the autumn time, there was the information that Iranian ship was intercepted on the way to Yemen by allies and some of the weaponry was confiscated. Well, I think that the part of that weaponry was the FADEC 2 rockets that can be used by Ukraine, and not only on the helicopters. Those are non-directional rockets and you may fire them as the rocket artillery system. So you aim with your helicopter, fire and forget. So it just flies straight forward and hit the target, hopefully. And this photo I found on the Russian social media. So this guy is demobilized Russian soldier and he's sitting on the T-90M, the best Russian tank, excluding Armata obviously, but Armata really doesn't exist on the front lines. This tank does. And this guy is on his training to be a tankist before he was civilian. So it tells us that Russia is in lack of the qualified personnel even for their best tanks. And this army should withstand the massive counterattack, probably the biggest one, as I say to you, since the World War II. But still, it's better not to underestimate our enemies. Still, they have lots of the soldiers and massive human resource. But they cannot mobilize everyone right now. Because Russian people also start to understand that the probability for them to lose their lives or get wounded on the front lines is very high. This is the very interesting video as for me. So here we have the map and the Wagner commander who explains what is happening from Ukrainian side near to the Bakhmut. He says that Ukraine concentrated nearly 80,000 soldiers in this direction, more than 300 tanks, more than 1,000 armored vehicles and 90 heavy artillery systems. Yeah, they explain everything in so much details. I wish this video would be in English. Well, I can translate, but it might take all of the time of this video. So, my friends, the basic principle for Ukrainians, as they say, that they concentrate the main forces inside the Bakhmut city and very close to it, and also preparing the forces in Slaviansk, Kramatorsk, Siversk and Chasiv Yar, and they are not letting Wagner to encircle the city with the constant attacks from the north and from the south. They also say that Ukraine is moving the forces towards Liman, and they write over there the arrows for the possible Ukrainian counterattacks. And Ukraine is forming the strike fist near to the Dnieper city for the possible attack on the south. So they say that basically they will go and cut the Russian group into two parts. And here you also may see some of the arrows of Ukrainian future counterattack. So they understand what is happening. And I think this is the Prigozhin who is sitting nearby, because this video was published on his resource, and I think the voice is similar to Prigozhin. So they say that there will be two vectors of the Ukrainian counterattack. One is in Melitopol direction over here, and the other one towards the Mariupol direction over here. Basically, they may cut the Russians in this side, and they will block, Ukrainians will block the ports over here on the south in Azov Sea. So they say that Liman direction and Kherson are the secondary vectors of attack, not the main ones. So here I haven't really understood what he said, whether ЧВК Wagner, he said Wagner army basically will take Bakhmut, it can release the Ukrainian forces, or if Ukrainian forces will take and encircle Bakhmut, they may release more forces in that area and start the counterattack, he says, towards Donetsk. From the north or from the south, from the main city, because it's the suicide mission to go to the city itself. So they really discussed the possible directions of the Ukrainian counterattack for the future, and they say that Ukrainian soldiers are very hard to fight with. We are not retreating, as many Russian propaganda media said. That's the words of the Wagner commanders. And the best thing that Wagners might do right now is to withdraw their forces from Ukraine, and in best case scenario to fight against the regular Russian army forces, then the Russian Federation start to collapse. I know that this scenario is highly unlikely, but still it is possible. In the end, he says that we should take it as our caution and think about the defense lines already. I think it is too late to think about the defense lines, and the ones that were built by Russia is usually not that good for the real defense, but good for the money laundering. Right guys, and I have some sort of the announcement. First of all, I have my Telegram channel, so I highly recommend you to join it. It's the public one, but also if you are the sponsor of my channel on YouTube member, or if you support me on Patreon, you will get the link for my private Telegram channel. And today I tried the live stream over there. It was very interesting. It's like a Skype call with lots of the people. And it was actually a great experience. I didn't know that you can stream on Telegram involving other people in conversation. So I answered lots of the questions and I like it. So thank you so much, my sponsors and my Patreons, for your support. Also, you'll see more podcasts for me in the nearby future. The last time I spoke about the China-Russia relations. And also I had the thoughts to create my live channel where I will publish some part of my life, but still I don't know whether should I made it public or not. Probably it should be public. And I already got the camera for my daily vlogs and blogs. Well, it should be nothing special, but I think some of you may like it. And there will be also the aviation content on that as well. Probably I'm gonna use my old pilot blog channel for my daily vlogs. And now please press the like to this video, and if you want to support my channel, there are some links in the video description just below for you to do so. Thank you so much for your support and your help to the channel. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.